welcome back to episode 13 of the SuperCoach Hooked on NRL SuperCoach podcast. Almost stuffed that one up. I'm your host, Sol, and I'm joined by my co-host, Fish. How are we?
Good, mate. It's good to be back. Not a good week for Supercoach wise for me, but an absolute cracker week for the Tigers and not NRL wise. Obviously, over the weekend, we saw about 18 sin bins, I think it was, which really
Yeah.
just killed a lot of my enjoyment of the NRL as a whole. But hopefully, they address it. And we got Magic Round this weekend coming up. So hopefully, it is a cracker and the weather stays dry, mate.
Yeah, that's it, mate. Obviously, we both live in Brisbane, and Magic Round, Brisbane's going to be pumping. So keen for Magic Round, and it's always probably the best time of the year for us NRL fans. Um, yeah, and obviously coming off the back of 18 sin bins, it wasn't great viewing, but it's good to see your Tigers and my Warriors get up on the weekend. And I had a pretty good week on the Supercoach fun as well, which keen to delve into. But I'll hand that back over to you, mate.
Yeah. All right. So, a reminder, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So, you listening, you right now listening, don't forget to subscribe. So, shout out
Yeah.
to the comments last week. We got SC Warrior. He's gone up the wars. Sol. Come on, Xavier, back your team. Top four, baby. This must be in
Love that.
response to the tipping comment. Tipping the
Yeah.
Knights.
Obviously last weekend I came on said I was tipping the Knights, but then there was a late switch which had Cogger come into the halves, and as soon as I saw that, I actually flipped back to the Warriors, and I'm so glad I did that. We look on one this year. We're coming fourth at the moment, and hopefully we can secure another win at Magic Round. We always do pretty well on Magic Round. I think behind Broncos supporters in Brisbane, if you attend Magic Round, Warriors would be second biggest sort of crowd or fan base there, I reckon. Do you agree with that?
They're up there. I reckon they definitely got a
Mm.
few fans. As do the Storm. The Storm just love playing at Suncorp for whatever reason. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Wires, it should be a cracker. They're versing, who is it this weekend?
We have the Cowboys. Cowboys
Should
this
be it
weekend.
should be a
So
really good game. That Cowboys obviously coming off the big win, and as we'll get into shortly, your captain. But
mm.
yeah, I think it should be an absolute cracker this weekend. So just a quick insight before we get to the tips. Are you going for the Wires this week, Sol?
I'm not again, mate.
Oh no. SC Warrior is gonna have a shocker. He can't believe that.
Yeah,
Come
I
on, Xavier.
probably
Back your
probably got to
team,
back the
mate. Top
Cowboys in,
four.
I reckon. Yeah, I don't know. I'm repping the jersey today, but I don't know if I deserve to wear it at this stage. I'll keep not backing us, but yeah, last week obviously as I said, I backflipped on the tip and went the Warriors, which I'm happy about. But this week I think I'm going to go Cowboys, and it's working. We're coming fourth at the moment, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it, mate.
That's it, mate. That's it. Another comment here from Daniel Rafferty. He's gone, boys, which trades are the best in your opinion? A, he's got Burden, Billy Smith, Drinky for Campbell, Arthurs, and Iongi. B, he's got Sharp, Smith, Drinky for Jenko, Arthurs, and Iongi. So
Um,
really, the difference is Burden or Sharp.
Obviously a bit of hindsight here because he would have asked that in the hopes that we would have answered before, releasing this app and before the last weekend. But I think if you went option B, mate, you'll be pretty happy with Burden getting unfortunately suspended for a week, and you would have Campbell this week who you could move on, so you got extra cash there. So option B looks the best in hindsight, albeit I probably would have gone with option A if I was in your shoes last week. I was
Yeah,
pretty keen on Burden.
yeah, I agree with you there. Obviously, Captain Hindsight comes in, but I was keen on Sharp, so I think B is still a good option for you, Daniel. So that is a reminder, guys. Don't forget to comment your questions in this episode for us to respond to on our next episode podcast, and we'll get back to them there. But that wraps up the YouTube for the week. Moving on now to our week and the week that was. And I believe it was a very good week for you, mate. And I think for the first time in the podcast history, you're above me in the league. So you can get the honors here and take it away. You're now sitting nicely in, just while it loads. Do you know where you ranked in the league if you were to take a guess?
Ranked in the league, I
Yeah,
think it's like 11th.
11th. How about
Yeah.
that?
and overall it's just outside the top 1K. I think it's like 1.3K. So huge green arrows again. I'm yet to actually see red really this season. I've come from 60K and it's just been an upward trajectory from there. It's a pretty slow start for me, but we're making our way up now. And yeah, really happy with how the weekend panned out. And as we'll touch on shortly, we've got a bit of technical issues by the look of it. Um, I'll wait for you to get those up.
All right, it should be back now. Seems SC isn't loading, so we'll refresh the league. But just a reminder while we're refreshing, don't forget to join the league. Not long left now at all. We're up to round. Are we up to round 9? Magic round 9.
Round 9, yeah.
Round 9. So you guys got 1 week left till the league shuts off in round 10. So this will probably be one of your last opportunities to join the league. So a shout out for the league code. It is 849156. And yes, there you are, mate, in 11th with a big 15-11 last week, giving you massive green arrows to now sitting in 1.4K overall. So if you want to talk us about how the trade-ins worked, how the captaincy went, and just what do you got to do to get your sort of luck this year, mate?
I wouldn't say that. I captained Turbo a couple of weeks ago for his 23 and Marju, but I've really nailed the captaincy choices the last couple of weeks, which has seen me fly up the rankings. And yeah, it was, as I said, it was a slow start, and we're making our way up there now, and haven't really slowed down. So hoping to keep up the momentum and yeah, hold my rank and even push for a top 1K spot. So over the weekend, obviously, as you can see there, I brought in Drinkwater and straight captained him, and that was an absolute. I'm really, really happy with that move. I couldn't be happier. It was really tough viewing though. In the first half, I think 30 minutes in, he was on like 7 points. I was obviously watching with a keen eye, and then at halftime, he got up to 29 because he had a line break, and I was like, oh damn, we're screwed here. And then in the second half, as we know, the Cowboys just poured it on. They ended up putting 50 on the tight ends on the back of a couple sim bins, which we touched on earlier. And Drinkwater was at the helm with that. So really stoked with that captaincy choice. And it was just him and Tedesco, pod captains pod fullbacks. I think a lot of people, they still have Ponga and your Guthersons, and I've got Drinkwater, Puppy, and Teddy, and I think big on it, as I said last week, those guys are the three you want to own now and throughout the buy period. I don't think any of them play Origin, and those are the three I'd be wanting to own. So I'm really happy with those guys and now and moving forward, and happy I got on them all pretty early. Other than that, what else worked out? Pretty like obviously Haas and May were monstrous, and then playing Sand and Smith at hooker. So I guess what you could say for me is I obviously have the Harry Grant injury, and I had Walsh get injured, which led my trades to like Walsh to Drenky was one of my trades. So those injuries were sort of a blessing in disguise for me. So, if Grant was healthy, I wouldn't have played Sandon and copped his 129. So, one for the Supercoach gods there. Really happy about Sandon's 129 there with a Simbinning as well. Um, Other than that, not too much else, mate. Everything pretty much went right for me, apart from playing Hiroti, but I can't be too mad at that because I was always doing it. And same with playing Egan. Obviously, you see Tamale 76 on the bench there, and I could have been pushing 1550 score, but yeah, overall, really happy with the week and hoping to push into that top 1K now. Just to recap, my trades were Jaden Campbell to Munster, Walsh to Drinkwater, and Arthur's to Billy Smith. So overall, pretty content with those. Looking back, a bit of hindsight, I wish I just had stayed away from Munster and gone Dearden with his monster score, and I would have loved to have gone Derby over Billy Smith and just load up on the cows. But I was never really doing that. So happy with Drinkwater and happy with the trades and how the team's looking at the moment.
That's it, mate. And yes, obviously massive greens with a big 15-11. So hopefully you can keep on the charge and sneak into the top K with the coming weeks. Obviously, my week wasn't nearly as good as yours. I finished up with a 1173. Started off, obviously, I ended up deciding to boost out Pakes. Obviously, I boosted out Pakes for Braden Brayley, and that resulted in me benching Sandon Smith. So to see him get 130 pretty early on in the week I knew it was not going to be my week in Supercoach. Obviously, the front row forwards this year, they just seem to be the area to target. Naf White with a bit of a down game in that absolute flogging against the Dragons. Second row forwards, Dylan Lucas bounced back with his first game back from injury, played about 78 minutes, and then he came off, and 30 seconds later, Brodie Jones scored a try on his exact left edge, which again summed up my sort of weekend. Just wasn't to be. Benched Nicholson this week as well for Egan. Obviously, Egan was a late start, so I thought I'd take the punt on Egan over Nicholson, which has once again backfired for me. And I think I'm drawing the line in the sand now with Egan. I'm not going to play him for the moment, especially while I don't know how the minutes will work out. And as we'll get into later, my team and depth is looking really strong. So someone I'm happy to hold. He's been named to start this week, but it is a bit of a watch to see his minutes moving forward. The only other real letdown was obviously the fullbacks this week. We saw Carraz actually in centre wing. He was on 3 at half time in that Broncos game, and again, sums up the sort of week I was going to have. It just wasn't to be. He ended up turning it on in the second half, scoring about 51 points, pretty much in base. He obviously got that good catch, offload, pass, try, assist, which he was awarded in Supercoach. But apart from that, I think it's just someone you should just lock in for the year. It just shows that in that sort of game, for him to walk away with 53, he's just an absolute gun. And moving forward, when the matchups get easier, as in this weekend against the Titans, I think it's a great time to jump on, especially with how the Titans have been defending recently. So yeah, big fan of Carraz. And then the fullbacks where it didn't work out. Obviously, I've been riding Kalen Ponga for the last month and a bit for his absolute rubbish, but we've made our bed, so we're gonna line it, and we're just gonna ride on Ponga. So I was big on the hold, so I'm just gonna keep holding, and I just hope he turns around. Obviously, this week against the Bunnies, a bit of a decimated Bunnies. Hopefully, we can see a turnaround and the Knights show something. But this next 3 weeks will really be the test for the Knights. I think if it was the hard matchups and turnarounds and stuff early doors, or if they just really do suck this year. The other one is Gutho. Again, another down week for the man, but I couldn't expect much when they were getting flogged. They looked like they were going to turn it around early doors in the second half of that game, but the Roosters just tore him off the park. And again, the Dragons didn't look too good. And this week we see a change actually for the Dragons, which we'll get into very shortly in TLT. But we see Ilias dropped, which I think will mean good things for Gutho, and also opens up a cash cow opportunity at 5'8", which we'll get into shortly. But he's someone I'm very interested in and personally big on myself. So that's kind of the week that was. Hopefully, we have a better the week this week. But apart from that, let's get into. Oh, just before we move on, we'll just have a quick look at how many people are in the top 1,000 in our league. So obviously, Zave, you're in 11th, mate, which just goes to show just how many people are doing really well this year, which is just awesome to see. And this week, Jet Speed, look at his overall rank, mate. He's in a 33rd.
Shout out to Jet Speed. He was there top last week as well. So you're killing it, mate. Keep it up, and yeah, that's awesome.
That is, mate. You are flying with a big 1492 last week. So just goes to show anything can happen every week. So don't get your head down. Keep the chips up, keep banging on, and you will get there. But that will take us over to TLT for the week, mate, if you want to take us away for this week's games.
Will do, mate. So first game of the week, Sharks. They're actually coming off what, a 5-day turnaround, I think, coming from Sydney obviously to Brisbane. But we see centre. They've made a bit of a mess of it here with KL, the letters KL Ero, but KL Ero has been named to make his return from a hamstring injury in a straight swap with Marini Hiroti, who injured his knee in last week's loss to the Tigers. Braden Hamunuele is also slated for his first NRL game since round 3 after making a successful return from injury in New South Wales Cup last week. The forward has been named on the bench in the only other change to the side. For the Eels, just the one change for a refreshed Parramatta side who will kick off Magic Round following last week's bye. Suspended forward Kelma Tuilagi has been replaced by Charlie Geimer in the back row. Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses will again combine the halves with Isaiah Yongi lining up at fullback.
Yeah,
That's it, mate. I'll
mates.
hand that over to you.
Yeah, so to kick us off with for the Sharks, just on KL Ero, he has actually officially changed his name in the legacy to his old man, the old great K. I forget his father's name, but he's actually legally changed his name. So that is
Really?
also his official name now, yeah, moving forward.
Oh, fuck,
KL
I
Ero.
didn't.
So I actually like it. It's pretty cool actually. So
Yeah, I didn't know that. Apologies, KL.
KL, if you're watching, sorry, mate. Um, for the Sharks, Hines Sharks, I just really don't know where I lie with them. They obviously they've looked good in moments at times throughout the season, but they also just still look really cloggy. Obviously, Hines got a couple try assists on the weekend to kind of save his score and put out an 80 odd, which is one of his highest scores in recent times. But I'm just not convinced, I think, with the Sharks. Obviously, I think they're going to do well and they're going to be in the top eight. But the combination with Trindle and Hines just doesn't seem to be working at all this year for whatever reason. But apart from that, Hines isn't a VC candidate for me. I know I'm jumping the gun a bit now, but Hines isn't someone I'm interested in VCing just because we haven't really seen him have a ceiling at all this year. The only other player of interest for me in the Sharks is obviously a bit of a shout out to Brenton Nakora. He has got real cheap in Supercoach now. I think he's about 550k. Could be a good little pod shout if you're shopping around that price range. Me personally, I'd be a bit more keen on Bo Fermor at the price, but I think he is a good pod shout. But AFB is the real talking point for me now. So we've kind of seen last week his minutes pick up again. We've kind of seen him now play, I think it's 3 games with 55 plus minutes. And he just has that massive base. So he scored 85 in base on the weekend, not really doing much. Obviously, coming into a pretty good matchup, I think, Friday night, 6 p.m. at Suncorp Stadium against the smaller sort of Eels pack. He is someone, I think he's bottomed out in price. He's 650k and he's someone I'm very interested in getting in this week. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, definitely agree on AFB. I think it was yesterday after lockout, he was in my trade plans. But when I did a bit of deeper digging into him, obviously last week went to Golden Point, which extended out his minutes. He also came away, reeling away with a bit of a shoulder niggle, but obviously he's fine to play this week. The 2 weeks before, mate, I know you said he's been playing big minutes for a while. He actually played in the 40s for minutes the last 2 weeks before Golden Point. And then also, if you factor in the game on the weekend, we saw Daniel Atkinson move out of the middle rotation and move into the centres because Hiroti got injured. So that's could be an increase in minutes there because of that. But I do like AFB as a player, and I think he is someone that we will want with him playing the buys, and especially the first two major buys in round 12 and 115. And he's got a relatively low break even now at 51. So I really do like the buy for those reasons, but I'm just not as sold on it as I was at the start. As for the other things with the Sharks, you're completely right, mate. They just look clunky, and it is 100% the Trindle Hines combo. And what frustrates me the most about them is that when the Sharks do well, everyone goes, "Oh, yep, it's all Trindle. Trindle setting up everything. Trindle gets all the credit." But when the Sharks do poorly, everyone goes, Hines is so rubbish. It's all his fault." So he just can't really win, no matter how the Sharks do. If they lose, it's Hines' fault, and if they win, it's all because of Trindle. So I feel a bit sorry for the bloke then. I just think they need to get rid of Trindle. Honestly, that's my input. This is Hines' team, and Trindle wants to play Trindle ball too often. And that's just my take on it. Like, when Hines is dominating, Trindle wants to get in the middle of it. But when Trindle's dominating, Hines, will let him run with it. And it's frustrating to watch as obviously a Nico Hines owner, but also I'm big fan of Nico, and I think it's not even debatable who's a better player out of those two. It's Hines, and Trindle needs to be as a six, complementing him, and yeah, not really liking what I'm seeing. So, like, if Craig Fitzgibbons, I wouldn't be surprised if Fitzgibbon was eyeing off a bit of a switch there because it's just not working out. But be keen to see how they go this weekend. The other things to touch on, I guess, Billy Burns. Obviously, he's coming into his third game this week. He's got a negative break even, and with Teague Wilden out for the next 2 to 4 weeks, he could be an option. Other than that, there's Ronaldo, who obviously we saw ton up, and they've got quite a good matchup against the Eels, and then moving forward as well, obviously playing the round 12 and 15 buys. I love getting Ronaldo in every year. He's definitely rocks or diamonds, and not for the faint-hearted. But as you saw as we saw on the weekend, he went monstrous, and he could have gone even bigger as well. I think he had two two plays where you know the points just in the line. So that's all for me with the Sharks really there, mate. Happy to move on to the Eels.
Yeah, like it, mate. For the Eels, not really too much I'm interested in here. Bit of a talking point. We saw Zachy Lomax has actually returned to training early and could be in contention for a spot in the team in the coming weeks. So I think that's kind of good things for Karaz, especially in an origin sort of sense with Lomax ahead of schedule. Apart from that, not anyone I'm interested really in the Eels. Dylan Brown peaks a bit of interest, but in a dead really 5'8" position for someone who's just going to average 60, I think we have better scorers elsewhere this year, as we've seen front row forwards, second row forwards, center wings. We have all these guns elsewhere. It's a decision, whereas with someone with Munster and JC, I'm contemplating, do I go JC down to a Dill Brown or do I go JC all the way down? And at the moment, I just don't really think Dylan Brown is valuable in that 5'8", just with the other positions available, but I don't mind him as a buy if your team is looking good elsewhere, sort of thing. But apart from that, mate, that's all I have for the Eels.
Yeah, I definitely agree, mate. I think if I was still had Jalen Campbell, Dylan Brown would be the 5'8" I would go to above all others. Just with his bye coverage and with Moses back, he seems to look a bit better. They don't have a too bad of a schedule either. Other than that, the only other players I want to touch on is Riley Smith. With that bench makeup, we could see him play 80 again. 2 weeks ago, before the bye, we saw him play 80 minutes. I know his SuperCoach output isn't the greatest. He's been like even in that 80-minute game, he got like 37 points, which isn't great. But as we've sort of touched on, the hooker position is quite dire at the moment. Riley Smith's 287k. For me, as a Harry Grant owner, I've definitely looked at him as a bit of a downgrade option to free up funds. He pays the first buy as well. So, you know, we did touch on in the preseason that we did think that he was going to build into the starting nine role, and an 80-minute role is what it looks like it's going to be. So I don't really think you could go wrong if you were looking to make a trade, a downgrade trade there at hooker. He's definitely someone I'm considering as early as this week. And then other than that, just Mitch Moses. I've seen a lot of people bring him in off the back of his performance against the Tigers 2 weekends ago on the Easter weekend. I don't like it at all. That's just my take. I just think I would have Cleary, Hines, and Hughes all above him, and then Moses. I would even probably have DCE above Moses. I just think Moses has no base. He got 4 try assists and got like 90, so he still didn't even ton up. He's not goal kicking once Lomax is back, so not a fan. What are your thoughts on Moses, just quickly, mate?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Obviously, halfback is a position this year, despite Cleary and Hines being the guns, they haven't really scored that well, and I think they're both averaging about 70. So if you're looking to pot up and you don't think he plays Origin and you're just a Moses fan, I don't mind it. But for me personally, he's not someone that I am looking at it getting in, especially with
I
the Hines and Cleary combo.
Yeah, I think for sure he's got to play Origin off the back of last year, and I would definitely be picking him in my New South Wales side. So yeah, for those reasons, like I would stay away. He's just but he's a very good player. I just don't. I think it's a bit risky for Supercoach, especially, and he's lost the goal kicking, and the Eels just don't look as good as they have in previous seasons. So, and then Charlie Geimer was the last one I wanted to touch on before moving on. Obviously, he gets named to start, but we know that Callum was suspended. He is someone I looked at as a downgrade option at second row. I just don't think we can trust it, to be honest. He's got he doesn't have a low BE at all. I just don't think we can trust him starting there. And we have seen him start in the back row. I think it was round one and play big minutes, and he didn't really put out much. I do like him as a player from what I've seen, but just wouldn't be jumping on this week. And I don't think he is a viable option.
Agree, mate. I think Havala is definitely a better option as a sort of upgrade, downgrade, cheapy option this week. In this game, just quickly before we move on, actually, I reckon the Origin Blues pair, the halves will be Cleary and Lawai. So you obviously reckon it will be Cleary and Moses,
Yep,
correct? Yeah.
correct. Yep.
It'll be interesting to see what they do this year. I just think with Moses and Cleary, too many chefs sort of thing. Just get Cleary in there, get Lawai in there. That's the goated sort of duo. That's what I reckon would be the best team. But we'll see what Daly does. In this, I have the Sharks. I reckon they should win this game, and I reckon they win this well. So I'm having Sharks by 14 in this.
14. Jeez, mate. And not keen on the Hines vice captain.
No.
Um, yeah, I quite like the Hines vice captain on touching on that. He's one of my two options. But I've got the Sharks winning this as well, but not by as much. I've got them by 10.
Yeah, hopefully we see a few Bradley to AFB balls, and with the vice captain, it is firmly on. We'll get to it very shortly, but it is firmly on him. Moving on to our second game, sorry, of Friday night. It is the Roosters and the Dolphins.
Yeah, so for the Roosters, we see Sandon Smith and Hugo Savala link up in the halves in a settled squad following last week's big win over the Dragons. Trent Robinson has made no changes to his 17, with Dom Young listed in the reserves for the second straight game. For the Dolphins, the return of prop Felice Kafusi offsets the loss of Daniel Saifidi to a shoulder injury, while Jeremy Marshall-King has been named to play his first game since suffering a leg gash following the Dolphins' round 6 win over Penrith. The Hookers return sees Ray Stone shift to the bench. Kurt Donahue is also back from an ankle injury and set to line up on the interchange. The inclusions have Sean O'Sullivan and Kenny Bromwich revert to the reserves. What are your thoughts there, mates?
Yep, for the Chookies, I know James Tedesco has been killing it recently, but he's someone I wouldn't be buying this week. Obviously, he's got the Finns matchup, but that goes into a bye and then the Dogs and then round 12, which is Origin. So you will then know if he will be in the Origin team or not. So for me, for a lot of people who are selling Gutho this week, they're either going to Drinky or Tedesco. But for me, I don't like either of them really as buying options this week. I think Teddy is a
Interesting,
great
mate.
player. He will certainly be in my team come round 12, especially if he's not playing Origin. But just with the matchups coming up with the bye next week, obviously a lot of us super coaches have plenty of Chooks players, so it'll be another good test of depth next week. Apart from that, for the Chookies, not much else I really want to mention. Savala's obviously the downgrade option this week at second row forward, but he's not really someone I can get excited about. And he's someone I'm not looking at interested in downgrading to just because obviously he's got some decent job security. Sam Walker's, I believe, 6 weeks away, but I just think before this sort of breakout game on the weekend with the 60, we've seen scores of 20, 17, just 80 nightmare sort of stuff. And for
Mm.
someone who's trying to build their depth now, it's just not really what I'm interested in or after. I get it as a downgrade option, but it's just, I'm just not very convinced on him. What do you think of him, mate, as a
Yeah,
downgrade?
I've definitely had a hard look at him. I think it's due to the week it is. There's no real good downgrade options putting their hand up this week, and he does seem to be the best of the bunch. Albeit he's, yeah, I totally agree with everything you said, as in, like, he's not going to set the world on fire. He's been great. Don't get me wrong. He's been great from a real life perspective for the Chooks. I think ever since they dropped Townsend and put him in, they've looked a lot better. He's great for the fifth tackle option kicks, and he's big body, defends well. They look a lot more smooth in attack, but it just doesn't translate to super coach points, unfortunately. And even with a try last week, he got like 60 odds. So I'm not the biggest fan of it, or but I will say, like, I don't mind it at his price at 223k, and also should play at least the first major buy with Sam Walker not due back. It's not the worst option, Like he'll make some money, but I just don't know if it's worth burning a trade on. It sort of screams a bit of Jack Kaczewski vibes, that sort of thing. You see a negative break even, you jump on, but he's just not really a good super coach player. But if you need to free up funds, then like I can definitely see it. You just got to weigh up if it's worth the trade. To me, a trade is worth 100k, and I don't think he will make 100k. He'll go close, but that's what I would say about that. So not the biggest fan. And then obviously I'll jump on the back of what you said about Tedesco. Totally agree, mate. I'm obviously an owner of Teddy, who's been killing it. I've had him since round 3 or 4 when I traded out Ponga for him. And but this week is not the week to do it. I definitely agree with what you said there. With him having the bye next week, I'm not a fan of bringing him. I wouldn't be bringing him in this week. Although it is going to be another very, very tough watch, I think, against the Dolphins, and like it is every week with Tedesco, he's just so involved and such a good player, and I definitely know I will have at least a VC on him this week. But yeah, I'll hand that back over to you, mate. Not too much else to touch on from my side.
Yeah, neither. Moving on to the
Oh,
Finns.
just before you do, the only other thing is on the back of talking about Savala, Egan Butcher is slightly more expensive than Savala. He's like 80 or 90k. I really don't mind him as an option with Lindsay Collins potentially going to Origin. Then you probably see, Angus Crichton, Connor Watson, all these guys going to Origin. Egan Butcher could be okay. He got like 36 points in 30 minutes last week, so I don't mind him as someone to keep in the black book, as well as Mark Nwonwu-Tuwaze. Obviously, wouldn't be bringing him in this week with the bye coming up, but he's someone to keep an eye on moving forward as well.
Yeah, like it. For the Finns, only real person of interest here again, Herbie just puts out great numbers week in, week out. He's a season keeper, he's a pod. Love the buy. Just don't think I can make it work for my team here. Anything else on the Finns?
No, that's it, mate. Herbie's, as we said last week, he's pretty much the only real relevant Supercoach option at this stage. I wouldn't be looking to bring in anyone else from this lineup.
Yeah. In this game, I think it will be a close game. Obviously, they both lost. Oh no, well, the Chooks came in last week, but sort of had that game up, what was it, 28-6 or something at halftime,
Mm.
and proceeded to end up losing the game. So I think they're going to be up for this game, especially at Suncorp, a sold out Suncorp at Magic Round. And I'm thinking the Dolphins are going to upset here. So I've got Dolphins by 2.
Geez, big call, mate. I'm definitely on the Roosters, but I don't know if that's because of my Tedesco bias and I've got a lot of Roosters stocks. But yeah, Roosters for me by 8. I'm going to say in this one. Oh, one last thing before we move on is the only other option I did have a look at from the Dolphins was Asako. He's pretty cheap at the moment. Plays the first buy. I don't mind him. As a bit of a center wing pod as well, if you're looking to go that way. But there's a few of them putting their hands up, as we touched on last game with Ronaldo, around a similar price as well. Um, looking quite good. And there's a few of those center wings around that price, Fletcher Sharp as well, that look all right. And Asako is one of them.
Yep, that's it, mate. Moving on now to our second game, our third game of the week, our first game of Super
Sadly.
Saturday this week at Suncorp. We have the Bunnies and the Knights.
That's it. So for the Rabbitohs, we see Jai Gray return to fullback with Latrell Mitchell suspended again for Saturday's clash with the Knights. Jack Wyden shifts to 5'8" and will partner Jaden Sullivan in the halves as a result. Just on that, news broke out today that Wyden is not looking like he will play this week. So if I was to do a better guessing on what they've got on the bench, I would probably guess that Schuster would come into 5'8" or Lewis Dodd, one of them, who are both listed on the reserves. With Ewan Aitken moving from back row to centre as well, the changes will see Tallis Duncan promoted to the starting side, with Lockley Hubner returning from concussion on the interchange. Fletcher Myers and Liam LeBlanc are the other new faces on the bench, and Lewis Dodd drops back to the reserves. For the Knights, forwards Jacob Saifidi and Adam Elliott have been named to make the return from calf injuries, with Saifidi in the front row and Elliott on the interchange. Tyson Frizzell returns at lock as a result, with Matt Croker shifting to the bench and Tyrone Thompson and Tom Cant dropping back to the reserves. Tyson Gamble has a chance of making his return from a broken nose and has been listed in the extended squad. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, mate. Look, honestly, for the bunnies, not real any interest here at all. I did have a bit of a look at Jack White coming into the week, but obviously now it's been pretty much confirmed he's got a hamstring injury and will miss this match. So that pretty much puts a line through him. And apart from that, yeah, no real interest from the bunnies.
Yeah, definitely agree there, mate. No interest in the bunnies this week and in the foreseeable future. And Wyden was the only sort of interesting player to purchase this week, and with him potentially being ruled out, that sort of cancels that out. So happy to move on to the Knights.
Agree there, mate. And hopefully the Knights can pick apart this decimated bunnies side. I've been big on the Knights. Obviously, they've really cost me recently. I've loaded up on him in SuperCoach and in the tips. Just hasn't been working out for me. So we're going to stick with it again. Hopefully, the Knights again bounce back. And this is the game at Suncorp, 3 p.m. Hopefully, it's a sunny Saturday Arvo on a flat track, packed out stadium. I think really this is the game that KP and the Knights sort of turn on. So hopefully, I think KP this week is more of a buy than a sell. I actually like the buy this week, buying KP for owners out there or non-owners out there. Apart from that, I think Dylan Lucas, we saw on the weekend, did nothing, scored 63 in about 75 minutes. You can just lock him in for the year pretty much in center wing or second row with the duel. He also has no buys until I think it's round 18, so he's got really good
Yeah.
buy schedule as well. So I think he's a really good no-brainer, and you should jump on before everyone sort of else does. Obviously, I've been big on him in this preseason. He's my boy, just he's an absolute gun for the Knights. Apart from that, KPP, it looks like a bit of a if you were to take a pod, more of a pod route, I don't mind him at sub 600k. Obviously, owners will probably be a bit scarred from the back end of last year, but I have a bit of interest there. But apart from that, that's about me for the Knights. Hopefully, they really turn it on this week.
Yeah, I definitely think they will, mate. I think this is the week. If they're going to do it and prove they're not absolute garbage, then they have to do it here against a side as depleted as the Bunnies. If I had Ponga, I would 100% be holding. No way I'd be selling for 530k or whatever he's dropped to now. I actually toyed with selling Pappenhausen as a bit of a crazy mad scientist move to Ponga and freeing up like 270k. I don't know if I'll do that, but I really don't mind. If I had Gutherson and I didn't have Ponga, I 100% would be locking that move in and freeing up cash and upgrading. I think Ponga's in for a big week this week. He's in for a bounce back. In the position I'm in though, with probably what you could say the three best fullbacks in Supercoach at the moment, in Drinkwater, Teddy, and Pappenhausen, I probably shouldn't make that move from a sensible point of view, but I really don't mind it as well. I think, yeah, Ponga looks good. Marju's always really good. And the only other two people I want to touch on who I've got a lot of interest in from this side, Lucas, who you already own, and we both own at the start of the season, heavily considering trading him in this week. And the other one was Fletcher Sharp. How has this guy at 5'8", with the Knights been putting like no points on for the last few weeks? How's he been getting the scores he has? He's been getting like 40. He got 48 last week somehow, and then the week before got like 50s, got 80s. He's just seems so solid, and I just love him as a player. I think he's just an unreal player. He's a real spark for them, and I love him as a trade and option this week, and I love Dylan Lucas as well. I can't really the sensible side of me says that Lucas is the better buy, but Fletcher Sharp just seems like such a good watch, and I really do like that as a bit of a pod buy.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that as well, as I am with Fletcher Sharp. I reckon load up on as many nights as you can and just hope they turn it around, and hopefully they turn my SC ranks around. In this, I have the Knights in a good comeback, and Knights by 18. They're gonna put on a bunch of points.
Geez, I don't know about that with Wayne Bennett as the coach, at Suncorp and Magic Round. I just can't see a side that he coaches losing by that much, but they very well could. I'm going to say Knights by 8 again.
Like
Yeah.
it, like
Oh, I
it,
guess
mate.
one thing, I'm not an owner of Tom Cant, but he's named on the extended, which is good for owners like yourself because he won't drop any cash. So, yeah, keep an eye out for when he is named on the bench. Definitely would look at selling them, but he's no rush to get out, but also would be looking at trading pretty much as soon as the move makes sense or a trade in makes sense for him.
Yeah, I agree with you there, mate. Moving on to our second game of Super Saturday at Magic Round this week, we got the Wars versus the Cowboys.
That's it, mate. The mighty Wars. Here we are. The Warriors have set a settled squad as they look to build on last week's win over the Knights. Coach Andrew Webster has stuck with the same starting side that has got the job done, with just the one change to his interchange. Tomato Martin has come to the bench with Jacob Laban unavailable after he was placed in the concussion protocols. For the Cowboys, no changes to the 17 that defeated the Titans last Saturday, with Harrison Edwards to wear jumper number 15 after he was a late promotion to the bench last weekend. New South Wales under 19 forward Caden Lars has been named in the extended squad and could make his NRL debut this weekend. What are your thoughts there, mate?
There you go. For the Wars, we Aaron Clark, hasn't he been killing it? I called him as a buy a couple weeks ago, and I wish I did it in Supercoach Classic as well as Supercoach Draft because he's been absolutely unreal. I knew he would see an increase in minutes once obviously Dylan Walker left, but he's really turned up to be that guy. I'm not sure if it's because of the Fisher Harris injury as well, but he's really become one of the staple go forward forwards for the Wars. And I think he's looked really, really good. He comes in now at about just under a tick under 600K. So he's a bit awkwardly priced. I did have a look at buying him this week, but I just think for an extra 100K, I can lock in Eli Katoa. So I think I'm going to be doing that, but he's certainly someone I have massive on, and he's just looked so good on the eye, obviously coming off a ton last weekend, and he does have the handy duel. But apart from that, that's really all that interests me at the Wars. How about you?
Yeah, mate. Aaron Clark, what a signing he's been for us. He's just been having a phenomenal season, and it's translating to Supercoach as well. So, um, I don't mind the buy, but I also think I prefer other options for around that price. I think you've sort of missed the boat there, and I actually prefer going Leka Helasima for 160K cheaper than I would an Aaron Clark. Just a bit more excitement, and he got like 53 in base, playing 50 minutes or so last weekend. He he needs to lock down this spot. Like Andrew Webster obviously is giving him the opportunity to do so now, and he looks like he's someone that with a super coach friendly game. He's just a absolute wrecking ball, and I honestly would prefer him as a buy, but to Aaron Clark. Not too much else to touch on there, apart from maybe Wade Egan, who just continues killing it. I said it in the preseason with him. If he avoids a head knock, with Sean Johnson gone, he could see a more creative role. And we're just seeing that week after week. He's a top scoring hooker, and he's been phenomenal for us. And honestly, what are your thoughts on him playing Origin for the Blues at 9?
I don't think he's any chance, especially with the way the Cowboys have been playing recently. And obviously, Reece Robson, I reckon he had his best game of the year on the weekend that has just been. So I don't see it. I think it's pretty much Robson's spot. He did a great job last year. I still think Robson is a very good hooker. Not to say that Egan isn't. I think they will just stick with Robson.
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out. I think Egan's definitely put his hand up, and he can't do much more to say that, like for putting his hand up for selection. But you probably are right there with what Daly will pick. But I also wouldn't mind, as a Blues supporter, seeing Egan in the side, or at least, get a bit of exposure to the Origin camp.
Could be like Barnett from last year. Bit more going on for the Cows. Drinkwater is sort of the main talking point this week. He's on a lot of people's minds. I'm pretty sure he's the most traded in, or the second most traded in this week. A lot of people are buying him, but he's just someone that I can't really get excited about. The Cowboys had a really good second half last week, and he scored, what did he score? Like 100 plus points in 40 minutes. But
Hmm.
they're not going to do that every week. And prior to that point, his highest score for the year has been 78. And I obviously wasn't watching the game, but how much was he on at halftime? Like 20 points or something.
29, yeah.
Yeah, like 29 points. So look, I can't really I can't really say I like the trade, especially if you're moving on from Gutho. I think you've missed the points now. Obviously, last week was the week to do that, but Captain Hindsight is saying that. And yeah, for me, he's just someone that I think he has a good buy schedule coming up. But yeah, I just don't think the Cows will do that second half performance last week. And I think this will be a really good test for him this weekend against the Wars, who have had a pretty good defense this year. Obviously, it's not at a Warriors home game, it's at a Suncorp Stadium, so could bode well for him. But yeah, he's just someone that obviously is a very, very big talking point this week. But yeah, someone who I'm just personally can't get excited about. Apart from that, obviously, Tommy Dearden went nuts last week, but as you sort of mentioned, I would agree. I'd prefer go Deal Brown now, especially with there's all these rumors coming out with Dearden playing in the halves for Origin with Queensland, Munster going to 1 and DC at 7. I'm not
Has,
sure
has
if
there been rumor on that? I threw that before this Cows game on the weekend in the group chat, and copped a bit of a backlash for that. But I really think Dearden has had such a phenomenal game last week. He's in such sublime form, much better than Ponga. Why, you know, like I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they went with.
yeah, there are a couple reports from a couple unnamed journalists. I'm not sure who they were. I saw them on Twitter that apparently that's what Billy is considering. But I just think we saw, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, Ponga play 14 off the bench, and he came on in the last 20 minutes and he just won the game for Queensland. He was that good. So no doubt he's been out of form. So I really think the pressure's on Ponga now to perform. So hopefully he does this weekend. Hopefully we see a massive score this weekend from Ponga, because bit of a spoiler, but he will be my vice captain this weekend. Apart from that, not really too much interest for the Cows. Obviously, Nana went nuts last week after I was considering buying him. He was in a couple of my trade plans, but obviously went elsewhere and he went nuts with 130. But I kind of think, obviously, Origin coming up, I think that performance alone has locked in his Origin jersey. So that kind of puts a line through him for me. But I think he's a great pod shout as well. But apart from that, for the Cows, that's all from me, mate.
Yeah, man. We are both big on that Nanai buy last week, and I did say that he could go and we could see him go on a bit of a Hudson Young type run, and he started that off with a bang, getting going absolutely ballistic last week. And I do disagree with you with him being a lock for the Origin side. I'm not as sold on that as you are. I really do think he needs a couple more good games. I actually prefer the buy over Nakora and Fairmore. I'd much rather go Nanai over those guys. He's got a lower break even, and he just is more, like he's just more exciting to watch for me. And the cows are humming, so I really like the Nanai buy even this week. Other than that, obviously Drinkwater, huge talking point. A lot of people are trading him in now this week. I was massive on the trade last week, and I think that's the trick to, Supercoach is getting on before the masses do, and backed it up with the captaincy on him, obviously. Um, my question is, why to people, why, the good matchup was last week. Obviously, he hadn't put up the big scores before last week. As you said, he had only got like 78 or whatever, but we knew that matchup was good for him and it was good for the game. So why are we waiting for the big score and then jumping on? So I do see your point there. I did like the Gutho sell to him last week. This week, I also like it. If I did own Gutho, I would be heavily considering Drinkwater. But I do think it's sort of the last week that you can make that move or should. Like I wouldn't be waiting another week on that move. If Gutho scores 80, he drops to like 680k. If Drinkwater scores 80, he goes up to 780k. At the moment, the gap between them is like 30k, but it's gonna it could get a lot bigger than that very quickly. And Drinkwater plays every single game up to round 26, which is the main reason I got him in. Apart from one, he misses the first major buy round, but he covers all the rest. So I just think that eventually you're gonna want him in. At some point in the season, you want Drinkwater in your side. And he's not going to go down in price after that massive score. So I think now is a good week to make that move, and I'm a big fan of him with the goal kicking as well. Other than that, the only person that we didn't really touch on was Rob Darby. Obviously, had a massive game, and a lot of people are looking at him with his negative break even. I don't mind the trade. I would prefer it over Savala just because if he does get one try this week, he needs to score. Basically, you're getting him in and you're banking on him getting 50s to make cash. Because if he goes back to what he did do before last week, which is score in the 20s, he's probably going to make only like 70 odd K, and he doesn't cover the first buy as well. So, um, I don't mind the buyer, but also he's a bit expensive now at 360K. He's a bit of an awkward price, so I do prefer over Sabala, but that's only if you can make the funds work. He's someone I looked at, but probably am going to avoid just because he does miss the first buy. If he did play the first buy, I'd be considering it a lot more, I think, though. On the other wing, touched on it last week with Talangi. There's a bit of a pod ahead of those guys, and he just keeps producing. No one really was talking about him, and I do sort of wish I jumped on a couple of weeks ago when was considering him. But I think the ship sailed now at 600, almost 700K. You can't possibly buy for that price. And then I guess the last sort of person here is Dearden, who also went ballistic. I think you missed the boat there. What do you reckon? Would you be looking to trade in Dearden or not?
No, I'd be going Dill Brown.
Yeah, I agree there, mate. I think we missed the points. We knew the matchup was last week. Missed it there. So, what about Derby? Um, any interest there?
No, I don't really think it's a good week, kind of as we alluded to earlier in the potty. It's a good week for cheapies this week. There's no real standout cheapies, and these kind of guys wouldn't be good cheapies in any other week but this week.
Mm.
I get the appeal somewhat, but I just don't think we've had that many cheapies. Like we shouldn't be worried about team value and stuff like that now. Like my team value, I'm already at 15 point something million already. I think it was around 13 or 14 last year where it took me to get to that 15 million team value. So I think with that many cheapies we've had this year that have really done well, your Shibasakis, a lot of the center wings, a couple of your Egans, your Can't sort of thing. I really think there's no need to chase sort of these cashes anymore. And that's what my focus is now changed to. It's now changed to we don't need all these cashes. Sure, if there's a good cash out option and we need to downgrade someone, I like it. But apart from that, I'm really looking to sort of upgrade my these middies, these sort of cashes that are peaked now, upgrade them to guns and just keep upgrading my side through that. So yeah, not really interested in personally.
Yeah, definitely agree there, mate. And I guess what you got to factor in now is for us two, we've both burnt a lot of trades. I think we're both on 28 with trades to come this week, 28 trades in one boost. So, trading in Derby, that's two trades, one to get him in, one to get him out as well once he's peaked. I think got to start getting a bit more selective with who you're bringing in for cheapies and cash generation now at this stage of the season. But you've got more team value than me this year. I think I take a bit more of a points first approach. The week of everyone getting Gutherson, for example, I went Tedesco, and in the long run, it's paid off. But I do look at my depth, and it's not as strong as yours for sure. I just think it's a balance between cash gen and also points on the board. You got to balance it out. But Supercoach is based on how many points you score, not how much money your team is worth or players are worth in your side. So I agree there, and I wouldn't. I lean more towards Derby being a no, unless you've got a stack of trades and you need a bit of cash gen basically, and you've got someone that just screams a sell like I don't know, Hiroti maybe. But even then that only frees up 50K now, so you know.
Not really worth it. In this, I've got your Wars, so SC Warrior will be happy with me. I've got the Wars in this I think it'll be a really close game. I think it'll be hopefully low scorer. I think I have the Wars by 4.
Nice, mate. Yeah, I touched on it at the start of the potty. I'm unfortunately going to be tipping the Cowboys in this one.
Jeez.
SC,
Warrior,
yeah,
Warrior, we hating ya.
SC Warriors blowing up deluxe. It's working out, mate. Just keep letting me say, spread the bad word about the Wires, and we'll keep doing well. We'll stay in that top four. So, not backing us again. Yep, Cowboys by 6.
That's it. Moving on now to our last game of Super Saturday. We have the Tigs versus the Dragons.
That's it, mate. So for the Tigers, Benji Marshall was stuck with a side that edged the Sharks in Golden Point last week, making no changes to a squad. Tony Sukar has been named 18th man. For the Dragons, Coach Sam Flanagan has turned young gun Lycan King Tonga to wear the number 7 jersey, with Lachlan Elias dropping back to the reserves. Winger Sione Finau has also been dropped out of the squad and will be replaced by Corey Allen, who completes a lengthy comeback from an ACL injury. Up front, Hamish Stewart returns from the concussion protocols at lock, with Jack DeBellin shifting to the interchange and Blake Laurie dropping back to the reserves. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, mate, not too much to touch on for the Tigers. Obviously, Terrell Terminator May, he's just that guy. The work rate on him, it's just so incredible to see. He played 80 something minutes in that game, and we still see him in Golden Point charging down field goals attempts. Like, that's insane for a middle prop who's played 80 minutes to still be doing that. He is such an effort player, and I'm
Hmm.
just so glad he's at our club with Benji. Um,
Just
Apart
on
from
that,
that,
mate, quickly.
mm,
Apparently Benji said that Terrell May was blowing up deluxe. That Benji took him off for like 5 minutes during that game. So it just speaks to the character, and he's definitely my pick for signing of the year. He's awesome, and he needs to be in the Origin side for New South Wales. No doubt about it in my mind. He'll be close to leading the Dally M. If not, he probably is.
yeah, definitely agree with you there, mate, with Origin. Yeah, apart from that, not too much else to touch on for the Tigers. I think for fellow Dewey owners like yourself, I think the move back to centre really suited him and it suited the Tigers. They looked a lot better, just a cohesion across the board, and they played really well. I think the defense was definitely the most impressive part of this game. But yeah, apart from that, that's all I have for the Tigs, mate. How about you?
Yeah, just on Dewey there. Like definitely agree with him looking a lot better at center. He got 72 points in pretty much base last weekend, and he's someone I'm heavily considering playing against the Dragons this week. So he's
Like that.
definitely on my watch list to play, obviously with the goal kicking as well. I don't mind it. And the Dragons right edge actually concedes one of the most points in Supercoach. So we'll be targeting that, and it will be Sloan. Sloan's out there, which probably is a big reason why they concede so many points. And also, this new rookie would be out there too on the right edge, with Flanagan being a left edge player. So, yeah, definitely will consider playing Dewey. And the only other person that we haven't touched on is Galvin. He got multiple tries this last week, and the Tigers just need him out there to win games. I think he's one of their best players, most attacking players, and it was good to see him back in the side. And no surprise that they get back on a winning feet. And for Supercoach, I do know I did have a look at him. But I just think with them playing the Storm next week, it sort of turned me off. And they also don't cover the first bye. But I really do like this matchup for Galvin.
Yeah, like it there, mate. Over to the Drags, a few more talking points, a bit of changes for the Drags this week. So, obviously, for good news for owners, we see Dylan Egan actually named to start this week, which is refreshing to the usual named on the bench. And an hour before kickoff, we see him promoted to the starting side. So, hopefully, that sort of means he's won the coach's trust and that we can sort of rely on him moving forward to play about 20, 25 minutes through the edge, then Lucy comes on, and then he sort of plays through the middle. In an ideal world, that's sort of what we see with Dylan Egan. Apart from that, we see Corey Allen make a comeback. He's come from the clouds from Origin 2021 to now making the winger spot for the Dragons. I think it's a bit harsh on who was the winger, find it out there. I think he's a bit of a goer, so I'm not sure if it's what's really happened there, but that left edge for the Dragons is a bit of a gold mine and where they score most of their points. So he's someone that is obviously not an interesting option in Supercoach, but just someone who's a good shout as a try scorer sort of this weekend. But apart from that, for the Drags, the only last talking point is we see the debut of the big king. This kid is an absolute goer. So I've looked in a few of his New South Wales Cups games and I've watched him before watching the NRL games a couple of times. And this guy, he looks really good on the eye. So to put it into perspective, he is a sort of a run first, sort of 5'8". So he's definitely a 5'8", by the way. He's not a 7. So I think it's just Flanagan
Mm.
protecting Kyle, naming him in the 6. I do think King will be playing 6 on the weekend there. But yeah, look, I think he's got really good base. I think last weekend he had 2 tries, couple try assists, 20 tackles, 10 runs, something really promising. And obviously Flanagan has seen this good form and has made the switch. And obviously it's a bit of a risk to go early in Supercoach. You can very easily wait. I probably would in a perfect world, but for someone looking for a downgrade option for JC, I think it's perfect timing and he is my guy. So he's someone I am looking at bringing in this week. But yeah, apart from that for the Drags, that's all that really interests me.
Yeah, mate, just on the debut kid, King Tonga. Yeah, like he played fullback and 5'8". So yeah, I definitely agree with you being a run first guy and everything you said about Flanagan being protected, not wearing the 7, etc. Interesting to see how this kid goes, but I definitely, as you said, in a perfect world, you would hold off the trade. I'm not big on trading him in this week. You said that you are. Like I don't mind it to free up funds. I just would try avoid doing those sorts of moves, especially in a spot like where he's available at 5'8", where you've only got 2 of them. I think it's better to just watch and have a look, and you definitely agree with that. But sometimes you just got to make these sorts of plays and go early. Would you be considering playing him for a bit of a pod play this week? Sorry, mate, just can't hear you at all. Sound.
All right. Are you
Yeah.
back?
Yeah,
All
good.
right, we're back. Sorry, I didn't hear that last part. What was that?
Would you consider playing him this week?
I actually have considered playing him, and it's between sort of Naf White, Sandon Smith, and him for me this week.
Jeez.
There is a world out there that I do play him this week. I think it's a good matchup against the Tigers. Obviously, the Tigers' defense has been good this year, but I think Saturday night Suncorp, there should be some good points in this game. I think the Drags will be looking to bounce back after being flogged last week, and I'm sure they'll be up for this. Obviously, the Tigers will be looking to keep the momentum going and hopefully get the win in this game, but I think there's plenty of points in this, which bodes well again for Gutho owners like myself. So, yeah, look, definitely happy to hold and very interested in playing King this week.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. The only other person really to touch on, we've feel like we've covered enough of the Gutho chat and where we stand with that. I think you can hold. Like if, for example, if I had Pappenhausen, Ponga, and Gutho, I wouldn't be trading Gutho to Teddy this week, and I would just be sitting on my hands. But if I didn't have, oh, sorry,
Drinky.
I'm missing Drinky.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I'd be making the move to Drinkwater this week. As I said last week, I think I'd be making that move if I was. And it seems like you're on a bit of a different boat there. But we'll see how it pans out. It's not a bad matchup against the Tigers by any means, and maybe, as we said, with Ilias dropped, Gutho sees a bit more ball. The only other person, Dylan Egan, had a look at him as a bit of a sell candidate for me with his BE being in the 60s. Um, I'm still heavily considering selling him. I know in an ideal world you'd probably want to hold him, but doesn't play the first buy. He's sort of hit a flat spot with his cash gen. Doesn't look like he offers too much in attack, although he did score 99 a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I think it's not a bad shout to sell. What do you reckon about that?
Yeah. Look, for me, I think he's a great depth player. I think there'll be times throughout the season where we'll want to rely on sort of these players. And I definitely don't think he's an urgent move on. He's had a couple bad weeks where one that was just a low involvement, and obviously on the weekend where he played not really many minutes. I'm not sure if there's been rumors that it was an injury related. There's been rumors it was just sort of how the game panned out. But I'm more than happy to wait this week. And kind of with all the cash we've made, there's no real rush to move these blokes on. If they lose 20k now and end up making 100k in the next month, it doesn't really bother me. So yeah, definitely someone I'm pretty keen to hold on to.
Yeah, fair enough. I just think there's a lot of second row forward options putting their hand up this week, and it looks like it's a good week to buy. We've already touched on a couple with Dylan Lucas, Britton Nakora, Jeremiah Nanai. We haven't got to Beau Fermor yet. Um, and also even his back row partner Jaden Sawyer, like I don't even mind that either as someone that's dropped below 580k I believe now. All these guys that you can get for like an extra 150k inexpensive Dylan Egan. I think it's just a good week to move on, but I also don't mind like at all holding. I think he's a very fine hold. It's just depends how your team makeup is. Like I'd much prefer sell Hubner, for example, over Egan. It's just Hubner costs 60k less. So what can you do with a 60k? Well, that's the difference between, you know, Dylan Lucas and a like Jeremiah Nanai or whatever it may be. That's pretty much all for me on this game, mate. I've got the Dragons to bounce back in this one.
Don't mind it, mate. I will be definitely tipping the Tigers in this game. I just hope there's plenty of points and we see some a good footy in this game. Moving on now to our first game of Sunday, we got the Titans versus the Dogs.
Awesome, mate. So for the Titans, we see David Fafita being relegated to reserves. Can't believe that. As Coach Des Hasler looks to spark his side season, the suspended Jamin Jolliffe has been replaced by Isaac Fasul-Malawi on a new look bench, also featuring Cleese Haas and Josiah Paulu. The Titans have also confirmed Brock Gray's season is over after tearing his ACL last week. And geez, that's horrific luck. Tore his ACL and got binned for the second time this season. For the Bulldogs, Coach Cameron Serrata has been forced into a handful of changes with Burden, Curran, and Tupanua suspended following last week's loss to Brisbane. Bailey Hayward will line up at 5'8", with Saluka Fafita taking Curran's place in the front row. Curtis Moran and Blake Taff are now the new faces on the bench. What are your thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, just for the Titans, with David Fafita, just quickly, he should have just gone to the Roosters last year. He's backflipped. He took more. Well, I think he got more money at the Titans, but it's clearly not working. The attitude, it just isn't there. It's a bit of a shame. I think he's one of the best second row forwards in our comp, and he just hasn't been himself and hasn't been that damaging sort of back rower that we all know and love. So that's disappointing to see, and hopefully this sort of stint on the sidelines for him really revs him up and is a bit of a kick up the arse for him. But apart from that, the only interest I have in the Titans is Beau Fermor. I absolutely love him as a buy. I think him and Lucas work out really well as a pair, especially both being dual. I think Fermor in the second row forwards playing on that edge. I think he is a gun. You can easily lock him in for the year. You get him at a really good price right now. I think he's about 550k with a negative 13 break even, but he's someone that you're not chasing to bring in and then take the cash. You're locking him in for the year. And I think, yeah, with the duel, I really like him as a buy. I just can't make it work this week with sort of, I'm looking for sort of those top tier guns this week. And I just don't think he's quite up there as a top tier gun. But yeah, look, I absolutely love him as a buy.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, mate. Like I don't mind them. I don't think I'm as high on him as you are. I think he definitely put his hand up for Origin, and I think he's actually a better shout at making Origin than Nanai at this point right now. I think things will quickly turn around with Nanai putting his hand up pretty soon. I like the Fermor shout at 550k. It's a fair price for him. Obviously, the concern being is does he get shifted back to center because he doesn't score anywhere near as well as that when he does. Hopefully, we can see him stick in the back row where he does produce super coach points. Other than that, not really any interest from this Titan side. Obviously, we have Tino, pretty happy with him. And um, the other the other thing is obviously Fafita, and I just can't believe he's been dropped. He was their best player 2 weeks ago against the Dragons, and yeah, very surprising that Des has decided to do that in place of Chris Randall starting the second row. Like, you've got to be kidding me, honestly. Honestly, like, what I I wouldn't be surprised to see Des being shown the door before Fafita. Um, because that's just an outrageous call. In no world is Chris Randall a better footy player or second row than Dave Fafita. That's crazy to me. He was literally the best player on the field 2 weeks ago. So don't understand that at all. Not a fan. I think the Titans are just very desperate to get Kieran Foran back in their side. They're missing him, and he's due back very soon, maybe as soon as next week. So I'm happy to move on to the Dogs, mate.
Yeah, for the Dogs, no real sort of interest here. We saw obviously Matty Burden last week obviously didn't get the kicking tee back and Crichton has kept it. So that's kind of put a line through Burden for me for now. Apart from that, I think Jacob Preston is a good pod shout. He's just very expensive at 720k, and I wouldn't be buying him at that price now. But I think in a couple of weeks' time, he might drop in price again and looks a great buy. Just looks to be a good buy this year in the second row. Apart from that, that's really all I've got to talk about for the doggies, Matt.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more to touch on quickly. I know we've got to probably speed things up. We're running a bit over time. But Burden, I'm very happy I didn't buy him last week with him being suspended now, and we didn't know what the situation was with him goal kicking. Definitely agree that he's not an option anymore. Um, Raz, obviously, me as a non-owner, he's 100% coming in this week. I don't want to make a spoiler on that, but we saw the Titans left edge concede three tries to Rob Darby in 4 line breaks. Carraz hasn't scored yet. He's due this week. Considering the captaincy on him, I'm bringing him in at a slight discount, so I'm very keen on that. And I think if you don't have him, I would heavily consider getting him into your side. There's no way I'd want to watch Carraz run at that Titans left edge, that leaky Titans left edge this week. Other people to consider, Crichton, if we knew he wasn't playing Origin, would be a really good option with the goal kicking. I think he scores this week, and I think he could ton up. And same as Connor Tracy, I really like investing in a couple of these doggies backs for this matchup. Same as how I was last week with the Drinky purchase against the Titans. You got to target matchups like this, and I think Tracy and Crichton as a bit of pod buys. I really like both of them in the centre wing. Um, there's a lot of options putting their hand up, but those are two guys I would consider. Tracy probably more so because he's got no origin risk. Really like Preston, obviously he keeps performing, and Kickow. And then the last one is Harry Hayes. He's got dual centre wing second row. He's like 420k. He's got, if you look at his stats, he keeps producing really solid points in limited minutes in base. And obviously, we've got Tupanua and Curran out of the rotation now. If he gets any more minutes, he could be producing 60s, 70s in base. The bench is a bit of a throwaway there, but Saluka Fafita is not going to play many minutes. And yeah, I think he's definitely someone to keep an eye on, and someone I definitely did look at until I found out he was a bit awkwardly priced.
Yeah, don't mind it. In this, I think the Dogs completely bounce back and flog the Titans. Hopefully, we see a Kraz double, and I reckon the Dogs by 20.
Jeez. I don't think the dog. Oh, I'm going to go Dogs by 10, actually, a bit more. I think the Titans should bounce back in this one. Yeah, we'll happily move on to the next one, eh, mate?
That's it. Moving on to our second last game at Magic Round, we got the Panthers versus the Broncos.
Awesome. So for the Panthers, Garner will line up at centre in his return from concussion. However, star winger Brian To'o remains at least another week away in his comeback from a hamstring injury. Luke Somerton has been named at hooker, while Brad Schneider was ruled out with an eye injury. Trent Talau is set for his second NRL game in the season and has been named on the bench. Scott Sorensen will miss the clash after he was unsuccessful at the judiciary on Tuesday night, with Lauren Patea in the mix to replace him. Edge forward Jordan Ricky returns from an infection and has only changed to the side that toppled the Bulldogs last weekend. The back rower is straight into the starting side, with Pia Kura shifting back to the interchange and Tyson Smoothie to 18th man. I'll hand it over to you now, mate. I'll be back in just 1 sec. Just gotta quickly.
Yeah, for the Panthers, I think the only real talking point here is it's good signs for Jenkins owners that Casey McLean has been dropped from the side. I think he really stagnated that left center. Like he is just terrible. He looks way better on the wing, but him at center, he just would never pass to Casey McLean. So McLean wouldn't pass to Jenkins. Sorry. So I think the fact that Luke Garner comes in at center as well this week bodes well for Jenkins, and I think it bodes well for Jenkins moving forward. I think that's going to show that Ivans trusts Jenkins to play center. So hopefully, when To'o comes back next week, we'll see Jenkins center and then To'o on the wing. Apart from that, no other real interest for the Panthers. Obviously, Nathan Cleary came back down to earth with the most captain player last week with a 54. So, obviously, with a tough matchup this week against the Broncos, he's someone that I'm not really interested in captaining or vice captaining, but I still think he's a good player to own this week. Apart from that, that's all that really interests me for the Panthers. How about you, mate? I just spoke really on that. It's good things that Jenko is now playing without Casey McLean, and that I think that he'll keep that center spot when To'o comes back.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think we saw a couple of rounds ago, similar scenario where To'o was in the side and we saw Jenkins play centre. So hopefully that is the case and he does keep his spot on the side. Um, Other than that, for the Panthers, obviously you want to see a bit of a bounce back from Cleary. 2 years ago on this exact round, Magic round, I ranked 12th for the round, and I did an actual check on this the other day, and Cleary was my captain that round. He went monstrous, and we know he loves playing the Broncos. The last two times he's played the Broncos, he's turned up, gone absolutely ballistic. He loves the spotlight. Um, as we saw in the grand final a couple of years ago against them when he had probably the best performance I've ever seen in the last 20 minutes from any player ever. I really do think he's a great captaincy option this week for a bit of a bounce back, and he's someone that I'm considering as a bit of a captain as well. But other than that, mate, not really anyone else that I'm interested in purchasing from the Panthers.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening against the Broncos, but I don't mind the shout. And I think if you do captain, he will be a massive pod this week because I just can't see the Panthers winning this versing the Broncos at home again in Magic round, versing a Broncos side that really rolled the best defensive team in the competition, being the Bulldogs, and the Panthers again struggling to win against the Seagulls last week. So yeah, for the Broncos, the only real talking point for me here is we see Xavier Willison sort of lock in that edge spot. Now, he's someone I'm definitely interested in. We don't really know how many minutes he gets yet. He's yet to play 80 minutes in both the games he's played in the edge. But if this is his spot moving forward, I don't mind the buy. I think he's a really good pod shout, especially at that sub 500k price tag. But apart from that, that wraps it up for me.
Yeah, definitely agree there, mate. I actually picked up Willison in our draft league after trading Terrell May away for Drinkwater, which is a bit of a ballsy play. I needed a front rower, and I picked up Willison. I really do think on the edge he's looks really damaging, and he played big minutes last week on the edge, so I think he's a good option. If he played the first bye, I'd be a lot more interested. But with them missing that, I'm less keen. Also, with Payne Haas and Carrigan move pretty much locks in the Origin side, he could see a bit of a bigger role over that period. So I really like him as a buy. Other than that, I think centers score really well against the Panthers, as we've seen over the past couple of weeks, and I think Stags is a really good shout to score a try and score really well this week. And I also Cobbo fullback 470k isn't a bad price either, but they're probably a bit more left field plays, but I definitely know that I did have a bit more of a look at Cobbo this week. I don't think I'll do it with other options appearing, but I don't mind it as well.
Yeah, like it. In this game, I have the Broncos by 12.
Geez, not putting any. I think the Panthers bounce back in this one. I know it's Broncos home ground, Magic round, but I'm really am confident in the Panthers bouncing back. I'm going to say Jenkins scores a try and Cleary turns up. You're making me want to captain him. Panthers by 6.
There you go. It'll be a good win from the Spooners if they do beat the Broncos this year. Moving on to our final game of the week, we got the Storm versus the Raiders.
So for the Storm, positive news for the Storm with Livewire Suafa-Longo named on the wing after being cleared of a concussion following last week's win over South Sydney. Tui Kamakamitha is on track to make his return from an ankle injury after being selected on the interchange in the only change to the side. Lazarus Barlipo reverts to the reserves as a result. Big man Nelson Asofa Solomona is in the extended squad and a chance of elevation to the 17 after making a successful return to the field through Q Cup last week. For the Raiders, no changes for the Raiders, who are absolutely firing at the moment as they prepare for a Sunday night showdown with the Storm in the final game of Magic Round. Ethan Strange and Jamal Fogarty will combine in the halves, with Josh Papali'i set to make an impact off the bench. Simi Sasangi is 18th man for the second straight week. What are your initial thoughts there, mate?
Yeah, only real talking point for the Storm is obviously we saw Nick Meaney come back last week, and in great news for all Pappenhausen owners, he kept the kicking tee. So that's just a massive green tick in my book for Pappy. He could very well be, you could easily hold him for the year, especially if he does keep the kicking tee. So apart from that, that's all I really got to touch on for the Storm.
Yeah, fair enough there, mate. Pappenhausen looks like or one of the gun fullbacks you want to own. I know I toyed with selling him down to Ponga, and that's mainly due to ownership reasons. He's owned by like 97% of the top 1%. Well, for good reason as well. But I really want to make a move into that top 1K, and none of the top 10 own Ponga, which is very interesting, and they all pretty much own Pappenhausen. So if you wanted to pot up, you could look at making a move away from him, and I think the Raiders will be up for it, which is part of the reason why that move interests me. Other than that, not too much else to touch on. Obviously, no Harry Grant, who I own, but he's due back next week, so I've got a decision to make there on that one. Well, he's supposedly due back next week. So decision to make there. And the Storm just don't look as good as what we probably initially thought they would this year. Even against a pretty flat Bunny side, they didn't look like it was a close game, but it felt like the Storm were dominating and they just didn't really put them away. So I don't think they're as good as what the community thinks they are. They're heavy favourites to win the championship, and maybe we've got to taper that back a little bit, especially against the Raiders, who are firing at the moment. So.
Yeah, and then for the Raiders, they've stuck with the same team. We kind of know what we're getting now. We saw a bit of an increase in minutes for Horsburgh, so I think you can very easily hold him now up until Origin. But apart from that, that wraps it up for me, mate. How about you?
Yes, it's pretty much the same thing. Nicholson playing 80 minutes back-to-back weeks. I would be avoiding trying to play Raiders players this week. Well, I'm not going to play Nicholson, for example, even though he's playing 80 minutes. I would much rather play Horsburgh because I think it'll be a bit more of a dog fight through the middle. Tamale, though, interesting thing if you own him, I know we both do. The right edge of the Storm concedes the most, is where they concede their most points. And you've got Farlonger, who is a terrible defender, outstanding in attack, but he can't defend up against him. And the left edge is the stronger side for the Raiders. So I think Tamale, I know you might look at the Storm matchup and go, okay, it's a Storm. I don't want to play as my center wing. But I think he's perfectly fine to play in someone that I'm definitely considering playing.
Yeah, like that as a shout there, mate. In this, I think the Storm will just be too strong, and I have the Storm by 8.
I've got the Storm by 4. I think the Raiders will really be up for it, and it's going to be very close.
Like it, mate. So that wraps up our TLT for the week. We'll now move on to our trades and skippers for the week. I'll start us off, and then if you want to screen share after this, that
Yeah.
could be good. So obviously this week, trades, as we sort of mentioned earlier on in the podcast episode, are running low. So the only way to stop that is to get rid of the boost, I reckon. So I am going to be using my last boost this week and then hopefully starting to hold trades from next week. So this week, there's obviously a lot of players I could sell this week. I've got Hiroti, I've got Gutho, I've got Ponga, I've got Jenko, Campbell, Kant, Egan, plenty of sellers across the board. But for me, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at downgrading JC to King. As I mentioned earlier on, that frees up 530k. That frees up so much money. So with that, that enables me to sell Hiroti. I'll flick Hiroti up, bringing Lucas down into my center wing, really completing my center wing for the year with Garrett, Karaz, Marzu, and Lucas. And that will enable me to bring in Eli Katoa in the second row forward position. I think he's at a good price now. He's at 680k. He's dropped 40k on his starting price. He's going to keep dropping in price. I reckon it'll be next week is really the ideal time to buy, but with guns this year, I'm just happy to lock him in. And with my team value already at 15 something million, I'm not really worried about what price I pay. So I'm just happy to lock Eli Qatar in now and sort of keep him for the season. That leaves me with 282k with one trade left. With that trade, I'm going to be selling Thomas Kant, which leaves me 700k to buy sort of anyone, a front rower, second rower, or center wing. If I could afford Herbie, I would probably go Herbie, but I can't. Olakawatu is on the buy this week. He would be the other one I would look at buying. So that leaves me with bringing Horse down into my second row forward and bringing in Adam Fanua Blake. As I sort of mentioned earlier on, I'm big on the Sharkies. Well, I'm big on AFB. I think if I chips in now, so that will leave me with both Brayley and AFB, a nice little 1-2 combo. So that can be sort of obviously Hines is very well owned, but that Brayley AFB combo, both super pod, I think those two owned together would be 0.01% sort of in the top 1% up there. So I really like that as a combo, and I like the look of that for my team. Downgrading JC and then upgrading both Hiroti to ECAT and then Kant to AFB. So that would be my trades for the week. Then sorting out my team, I would again insist on playing Brayley, but as obviously Sandon played so well last week, for now, I think I'll have an R on him. Moving on to the front row forwards, we will have Haas and AFB and May this week. Really, really, really strong for front row forward pack. Moving on to the second row forwards, we've got Tino, we've got ECAT, and we've got Corey Horsburgh. Happy to bench Nicholson this week, as we sort of mentioned, harder matchup. And we've also got Dylan Egan, who I'm just not going to play this week. Happy to have as depth. Moving on to the halfback, we've got Cleary and Hines, with Hines playing that earlier game. I will be starting Hines. In the 5'8", happy to just lock in Cam Munster. Moving on to wing centre, we'll be captaining Karaz this week. I am going to go back to Captain Karaz, obviously. Oh, I didn't even touch on it. Last week I captained Munster, so I've just been going for the most pod captains recently. I might have been losing the head too much, but I've just been chasing that upside, and I really think the upside is there for Karaz this week in a really juicy matchup against the Titans. So I'm hoping that he kind of gets his first try for the year, and if he scores, he tons. I kind of have said early doors. So if he scores, he tons, and with a ton as captain, I'll be stoked with that. So he's my captain for the week at the moment. This is then the last decision. Who am I playing in my center wing between Tamale, Jenkins, Smith? For me, it's between Smith and Tamale. And for someone who doesn't own Tedesco, I think I would like a bit of coverage in that Roosters game. So I think I will be playing Billy Smith there in a bounce back hope. Then pushing on to fullbacks, we've obviously got KP as vice captain again this week. Hopefully this week is the week he bounced back. Then Gutho gets a reserve, and then Pappy in the flex. And that will be me for the week. So firstly, what do you think about those trades, mate?
Can't fault them at all, mate. I think with Eli Katoa, the Storm don't have a great buy schedule, but I obviously own him at the moment. I've been quite disappointed with his output, but with that being said, he is a gun, and you can bank on him being a top three second rower at season's end. I just and he is at a really good price, and it's never really a bad time to bring him in. I honestly, with that, I think I'd be more interested. I don't know if you can do it, or how much cash you have, but I'd be more interested in getting a Herbie in for instead of Ali Katoa. I'm not sure if you can do that and flicking Lucas back up.
I'm not. I'm short by 4 and a bit K. I did because I was keen on that as well, and I'm keen on Herbie, but I was just short.
Oh, geez, how much? Why?
But now I can afford it. It must have been another iteration of the plan. But there we go. I can also afford this.
Yeah, like I think with Herbie playing the first bye, that's probably what I would be doing. I've been like, and he's safe. He's running at Rob Toya. Like I don't know. It's much of a muchness. They're both keepers. I just yeah, I haven't really been impressed at all with Ali Katoa, and he's running at Strange and Hudson Young this weekend, which is the Raiders' stronger edge, and they're quite good defensively. So maybe something for you to consider. But other than that, mate, like obviously there's a bit of risk involved in downgrading Jaden Campbell to like a cheapie such as King Tonga, but it allows you to get rid of Hiroti and Kant, who are both very good sells, and you can do those huge upgrades to Fanua Blake and Eli Katoa slash Herbie, whoever you like, who are all great options. So I really like the look of your side. The only other thing, mate, is I think um, I would be playing White this week. Just think the Chooks pack looks a bit depleted to me. I know he got 38 on the weekend, but I think surely he's got due some more minutes. I'll be playing him over Sandon, in my opinion. I know it's risky after the week that Sandon had. Um, Either Sandon or Horsburgh. I even prefer him over Corey Horsburgh this week, but that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, obviously, well, you do with that whatever you would like, man. Obviously, we see that's your last boost as well. So
It is happy to get rid of him. So after this, I can start saving trades. But yeah, I definitely agree with you with the Sandon Smith thing. And that's kind of what I alluded to earlier in the potty. The last R for me this week is really between, yeah, Sandon, Naf White, or King Tonga. So just sort of depends what way I'm feeling, what sort of the game it is. If it's raining on Friday night, I think I'll probably even take the punt on Tonga. But yeah, at the moment, like I was very keen on that fight. I think it's a safe play. I just think with the way my side's looking and it's looking really strong, so I think I could just chase maybe that upside because I just don't want to be burnt by a Sandon Smith ton again.
yeah, fair enough, mate. Yeah, can't fault it. You've got as we touched on, you've got a lot of depth, definitely more depth than I do, which sort of alludes to like our different approaches to the game. You probably prioritize a bit more cash than I do. Yeah, and your side's looking good, mate. Can't fault it. And yeah, I like the VC on Ponga and C on Karaz shouts as well.
Yeah, like that. So there we go. I could play Naf White and then reserve horse if I wanted to do that. And then
Mm.
who would you go? Billy Smith or Tamale?
I'm having this issue as well, mate. Like as well with these exact three guys, Billy Smith, Tamale, and Jenkins. I keep backing Jenkins in. I played him last week, but as I sort of touched on, I think the Panthers win this week, and without Casey McLean, I think Jenkins scores his first try of the season as well. But you know, it is hard to back him in when he has seen fuck all ball the last couple of weeks. To put it politely. Yeah, coin toss, you know, whichever way you go will be the wrong way. Obviously, we saw that with last week with Hiroti. The head, it all made sense to play Hiroti. He got like, hadn't scored below 70. He had the best matchup, and then he comes out and gets 13, and Tamale comes out and gets 76. So it's just one of those ones you just got to hope the gods are on your side and back it in, I guess. So I can't split them. Billy Smith is probably the head play, but you know, he's also running at Herbie. So is it Herbie?
No, it's Avarillo,
Ah, fair enough. Yeah.
Toya
I mean,
against Herbie.
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Can't really split them, mate. It's just yeah, I've got no input there, so I can't help. I'm in the same boat.
Much of a muchness there. So yeah, that wraps up my trades and skippers for the week, mate. If
Yeah, I'll take
if
it
we'll go
away.
yours now, your trades and skippers for the week. So what are you thinking this week, mate?
Easy. Can you see my screen?
I can.
All right. So at the moment, mate, I am for the first week in a while. I'm really unsure on my trades. As you can see, I've got 150k in the bank. One thing I'm definitely doing is getting rid of Hiroti, and I'm 100% bringing in Karaz. As you can see, I can't afford that. I've got one boost up my sleeve at the moment, so I'm 100k short. So I've toyed around with what I can achieve. I can save the boost and go Hubner to Savala if I really wanted to, but it feels like a bit of a nothing move. Um, yeah, like it's all based around Carraz because I really want him this week against the Titans. I think he scores. So I've got to free up funds to get him. I've got to free up 100k somewhere in my side to do it. The obvious thing is we see Harry Grant not playing. Origins around the corner. Hooker is a dead position this year, so I'm very tempted to trade him away and go down to Riley Smith and free up funds for a bit of buy coverage. There's a part of me that wants to hold Harry though, with obviously Sandon having the buy next week. I would love to have Harry as a bit of a hooker pod next week against the Tigers at Amy Park. I also just don't know how he's going to come back or if he is 100% guaranteed to come back next week. So it's a bit risky doing that. So where I'm at with it is doing those two and then also boosting out. That obviously frees up a lot of funds, and then boosting out Egan because I really want Dylan Lucas as well, who I also touched on. And the only way for me to get to him is doing this, is getting rid of Egan. Unfortunately, I'll much rather get rid of Hubner, but as I always sort of say, it's you got to prioritize who you want in rather than who you're trading out. So I want in Carraz. I'm going to trade out whoever I need to get Carraz in my side. I'm not going to be focusing on my players to get rid of, like Hubner, Harodi, and then because it's just not enough funds to get the players I want. So I think that's one thing that I always sort of try to do is focus on who I want and then make it work from there. So I'm selling Egan, much rather sell Hubner, but that's because I want to get these players in. So this is sort of where I'm at. Would join you on 25 trades and zero boost, and I also did toy with. I was initially on going for Noah Blake over Lucas, but I think I'm sold at the moment on going Lucas over Fanor Blake for now. Just he plays every game up until round 18. He looks solid. Can flick him up and down, and it's just safe. So this is where I am at with my side. I would be playing Sandon at hooker, playing Payne Haas, and I'm really unsure on my reserves. Definitely settling on these three as my starting second rowers, and Katoa, Lucas, and Tino. Cleary and Hines, Munster, and then I would be playing. This is the part of the headache for me. Teddy 100% gets a VC or even a captain. I toyed with VCing Hines into Teddy captain, but I think Teddy VC is locked for me 100%. And then at the moment, it's between Carraz, Cleary, and May for my captaincy choices. Just depends how I'm feeling on the day, pretty much, and that's how I'll look. I'm really unsure on my last two reserves. Obviously, I've got Horsburgh, Nicholson, Dewey, and then I've got to decide on a centre wing to play. So if the Dolphins do turn up and I've got Tedesco and Billy Smith, that's going to hurt. Jenkins as well. I don't know if I'll play him. We've got
Oh,
Toya,
jeez.
Tamale. So I'm not too sure. Not too sure on what to do with my reserves. The safest option is probably doing it like this: Billy Smith and Tamale against the Storm's leaky right edge, going with Dewey starting and then also reserving Horsburgh. That's probably what the head says. I'm pretty set on not playing Nicholson, but I also really don't know what it is. But I'm keen on playing Jenkins this week, so you might see me take a reserve off either Dewey or Tamale or Billy Smith. Um, and play Jenkins for a bit of upside because I am quite confident that the Panthers do win and bounce back this week. So that's sort of where I am at the moment. Not really set and not sure on that if that's worth my last boost, especially um, just where I'm at with this side. I don't like selling Harry Grant to Riley Smith and wasting a boost on the hooker that's probably going to get like 35 to 45 points a week. But sometimes you got to do those moves. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, with your side, I think I do like just that two trade. I agree. I think Kraz out of anyone is probably the one you want to get in this week with that matchup. And so to fund that, despite not liking Havala, I do think Hubner down to him is probably the best go just with your team dynamic. I don't mind the Grant hold. Obviously, not much going on in hooker anyway, but yeah, well, the question to you really then is, do you think it's worth boosting for Dylan Lucas?
Yes, 100%. The Bunnies conceded so many points on their right edge, and Dylan Lucas is back and healthy, and I've no doubt that he's a keeper. He'll play every round till round 18. I would prefer Lucas over Harry Grant, which is pretty much the swap I'm doing um, to make it work. And it does mean that I also can just lock in my starters every week, sort of thing, and pick my reserves now. Yeah, I mean, it does also mean that I have to play Riley Smith next week, which isn't ideal because he's not that great. But hooker, I think you've got to sort of identify these positions in Supercoach where it looks a lot weaker. Last year it was front row forward. Um, this year it's hooker, with no one really putting their hand up. It does hurt though, boosting out Harry Grant, who I have no doubt will be in the top sort of hookers. It's just playing Origin. He's not back yet, recovering from a hamstring injury. Those are the concerns, and he ties up 600k of my cap, unfortunately. So that's where I'm at. But I could easily just hold him and change back. But then I've got almost no Knights coverage, which I don't like. I've just got Marju, and I really am not a fan of that against the Bunnies right edge. I would much rather be a lot more content having Lucas or a Fletcher Sharp in there as well. But yeah, not set on that at the moment. And yeah, something that I'll definitely have a bit more of a play around with. I've got a bit more time with games not starting until Friday. But one thing's for sure, it's Harodi to Kraz. I just got to work out how I fund it.
Yeah, like those trades, like the Karaz C, as with me, I think he does hopefully score this weekend, and we kind of see that first ton of the year for Karaz. I think apart from that, no, your side's looking good, and hopefully we can both see some green arrows on this magic weekend round of footy.
That's it, mate. Fingers crossed, and yeah, hopefully the fullbacks can deliver again with Teddy and Drinkwater. Uh, yeah, killing it, and people starting to bring them in now. That's pretty much what my side depends on um, at the moment compared to your side. I think I've just traded your good depth for having Teddy, pretty much having Teddy and Drinkwater. But we'll see how that pans out again this week with Ponga and Gutherson also having pretty good. Well, Ponga definitely having a good matchup, and Gutherson having a pretty solid one. So
Yeah, like the buy of all the Knights boys, and I like the buy of Karaz. So good stuff there, guys. That brings us to the end of episode 13 of the Hooked on NRL Supercoach podcast. Thanks for listening. If you've made it all the way to the end of the video, comment. What do you want them to comment, Zave?
um, geez, putting me on the spot here.
Putting you on the spot.
Let's do something a bit controversial. Let's go. Um, comment who do you think would you pick in Origin? Would you go Munster at 1 and Dearden at 6, or would you go Ponga at 1 and Munster at 6?
Like it. So, guys, comment. Let us know down below. Would you prefer Munster at fullback and Dearden in 6, or would we prefer Ponga at fullback and Munster at 6? But, mate, thanks for another great episode, and let's do it all again next week.
That's it, mate. Yeah, thank you, and thanks for everyone that tuned in. Hopefully everyone has a good week this week, and yeah, here's some magic round. Cheers.
That's it, mate. Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.